Hello everyone, April 8th. I would like to review the Bitcoin record as we have reached the targets we set. Also, the pin we talked about in the last video, in my opinion, has completed its formation. And we can work well with it, looking for entry points. Let's start with a review of the previous analysis. In the previous analysis, we were waiting, like here, for the execution of the head and shoulders pattern. But most likely we incurred a loss here, as after the formation of the shoulder, there was a false breakout and return. That is, if the stop was set behind the shoulder, we hit the stop. And in principle, we didn't even get the growth we were expecting. The growth turned out to be quite sluggish. As I mentioned in the last video, it would have been better. At that moment, I stayed out of trades and waited for the formation of our wedge. And that's what happened. Now we are on the chart, and the Bitcoin chart is taken from Ben Once's 4-hour time frame. And as I already mentioned, in my opinion, the wedge is formed. I measured it with levels. Fibonacci, there is no violation in our wedge construction. The cancellation of this wedge will occur. That is, I don't know, we might still touch the level and only after that start a correction. But we have a cancellation point, and I want to show it to you. When we stop focusing on our wedge, accordingly, we have the penultimate wave, and each subsequent wave should not be longer than the previous one. If we measure by the beginnings, then accordingly, if the wave that is forming now will, if it breaks, level A, 70, 113, our pin will be cancelled and will not be relevant, so it will no longer need to be monitored until we reach this point. As long as we continue forming this pattern, but we can definitely talk about breaking through the top and consolidating on it. We might potentially see a correction. So this is it. At the correction level, we can look for also, based on Fibonacci, we can construct a Fibonacci grid from the start of our movement and see that the levels of interest to us will be at the marks 0.5. This is the level 91, 900, 0.618 at 96, 412, and 0.764, which is approximately the level 101, 101. $300 to $1,000, 300. So then the wedge is forming and will break through, and it will be important for us what in the form of this correction accordingly. Based on the form of this correction, we can calmly discuss either the continuation of the asset's price increase or the continuation of the decline. As I mentioned, if it breaks through, we will get a correction in the form of threes, in the form of a zigzag. Clear, right? With the violation of overlap, we will clearly understand that this wedge is merely the beginning of our correction. After this, we will expect another wave of decline. But otherwise, if we exit the wedge with a sudden and impulsive movement, there will certainly be consolidations above our resistance levels, after which we will get the same correction with the rules of overlaps. We can calmly look for entry points to continue this growth trend and can assert that the asset bacon will continue its ascent. The new maximum trend line has still not been reached. Accordingly, we cannot continue to fall along the wedge, but we should not fall, as I already mentioned, below the level of 71,000. Here we will have it cancelled. We are used to the decline and should look at the character of the movement and lean towards one side or the other for the continuation of the price movement. So, rather, if we get a zigzag, we will continue to fall, which means we are leaning more towards short positions and looking for signals for short positions. If we get a nice correction impulse here, then we switch to long positions. Position for further investment to achieve new highs for a breakout. Maxi. That's basically, indeed, probably all I wanted to say. At the moment, we do not expect any other signals. However, we remain vigilant, even if we open there on this time frame. We see basically everything I told you that is on the 4-hour chart. It's a primer. The levels were not reached by the renders, almost touched indeed, but then it seemed that a response appeared a bit earlier than expected. But this is thanks in part to recent news updates and those people who buy and sell slightly above the level itself, not waiting for these levels themselves to be fully reached. Accordingly, with this level, it might not come, receive some false breakout, return accordingly, and a proper breakout. We can work and start our client trading earlier before its breakout and consolidation above the upper boundary. Accordingly, now you need to closely monitor the chart, carefully watch the 4-hour time frame, cut with hourly time frames, and don't forget to look at the daily time frame. Based on this, make some decisions. In my opinion, right now, the most important thing is to look towards buying, towards the long side. As I repeat once more, in my opinion, 3 waves of the zigzag have already formed for them. We have a slight decline accordingly. All necessary points are fulfilled for the formation of this pattern. You can try to identify entry points for its execution. I would also like to add that you should always adhere to money management, always set stop losses, and monitor your risks. Only in this lies success. Trading. If you don't monitor risks, if you overestimate risks, can very quickly lead to a margin call. Accordingly, based on my views on the market, you can build your own scenarios, your own trades, but I repeat, no matter how much you lean towards my opinion, always use money management, always use stops. Good luck and profit to everyone.